Well, it is the suburban mom that won Trump the election. Now, we can always point to a different demographic and say they're the ones. But we know is that Trump was trailing among suburban moms in 2020. And then they shifted rightwards in 2024. I think the gender issue played a large role in that.
If you're going to give me a second to talk about it, I'd be glad to talk about what we did. And we did it in 4 swing states: Georgia, Arizona, North Carolina, and Wisconsin. We focused in on about 250,000 women that hadn't really voted in 4 years in those states. And we went and targeted them for 6 to 7 months. Hyper-local issues, Mr. Jones in your local school down the streets wearing a dress in the 5th grade class. Did you know? Make sure you vote up and down the ballot against people that are supporting this. Make sure you know that the Biden administration rewrote Title IX to allow this in that school. We sent them texts. We handwrote postcards, thousands and thousands of handwritten postcards, knocking doors, all those things. Long story short, in those 4 states, we turned out an average of 93% of those women, about 250,000 in each state. That's over 800,000 women that wouldn't have traditionally voted in an election turned out to vote.
I think angry moms definitely helped win. I mean, you saw everything that happened during the lockdowns with kids.
Oh, they were mad.
School closures and all that
so mad.
stuff.
Where were you in the past few years? Were you always a Trump supporter?
I have voted for Trump traditionally, but I'll admit in 2016, I walked into that voting booth not going to vote for him, and just
You're gonna have to leave the show now. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Then come
I
back.
didn't vote. I didn't even vote that year.
Then what do you got to say about me? I
stood.
stood there and I was going to go third party, and this is a little bit of a crazy story. The only other time I voted third party was the Bush-Gore election. And I sat up all night like, I'm the reason this is happening, because I didn't vote for Bush. It's my fault. Like, I personally felt like, we went through the hanging chads because of me. And so I told myself that night I would never do third party. I kept thinking about that, and I wasn't going to vote for Hillary Clinton. And so I ended up voting for him. But it's been an interesting road. I wasn't always the loyalist that I am now.
Do you find that, moms view him as icky?
Less and less.
Less and less. Wow.
Yeah.
Because he's chilled out? Why do you think that is?
Look, he campaigned on several things that had to do with Moms for Liberty issues, the overreach of government, what they saw what the Biden administration did to parents that were just standing up trying to protect their children. He stood on that issue. He stood on the issue of keeping boys out of women's sports. He understands what's going on in education, and he has listened to us on those. And he came right out the gate as soon as he took office, and executive order after executive order after going in. Look, we are just women. We're strong, independent women. But to see someone stand up for the issues, that has the power to do something about it, and to see him stand there and do that on our behalf to protect our children, he's got our support hands down. Women are coming over left and right because of that.
Do you think Melania is a huge influence on that? Because I'm just starting to think maybe she's like really morally pushing, like helping him.
Of course, behind every man there is a good woman.
I wish she was more vocal in the world. I've thought that since the beginning. I mean, she's doing what she can. I think she's a little self-conscious because her English is her second language, or not her first language. At least I think she might have said stuff like that in the early days. Her fourth language. Yeah, she speaks
like 5 languages.
Genius. A genius woman.
I'm sure she's self-conscious that she speaks 5 languages fluently. Oh my gosh. She's amazing is what I'm trying to say.
And I agree. Tim, you were about to ask a question too?
No.
Oh, yeah. Melania is a kind of an unsung hero over the last decade in a lot of ways. She's very grounded.
What happened to Democrats?
Did you consider yourself a Democrat?
Freaking mind. No, I've never been a Democrat, but I will say a good portion of our organization are former Democrats. We even have some Democrats, which, the left in the newspaper would never, or the mainstream media would never tell you that. I think I was telling you the other day that we were in I was in a meeting in Ohio with my chapter leaders from the state. Half of the room had voted for Obama. And so they're coming over because they don't like what's happening to their kids. What
do they tell you when they come in and they're like, oh, I didn't, because they're apprehensive. There's a lot of stigma that goes along with it. What do they tell you when they come in?
Well, the first one said it. I can't remember how the conversation started, but the first one said it when we were in a group setting, and the other started poking fun at her. And then one said to the other, like, you can't laugh at me. You voted for Obama, and then you voted for Obama. And before you knew it, I was like, okay, raise your hands if you voted for Obama. And it was half the room. And, a lot of them just said he seemed hopeful. They didn't follow politics. They didn't vote in local elections. No idea who their local elected leaders are. But they looked at Obama as someone who was offering hope and change, just like he said. And so it was an easy cast for them.
I'm hearing this more of an anecdotal question, or a question that I'm just getting your personal opinion. Do you think women are voting, because like you said, they felt hope when they saw Obama. Do you think that the women are voting less with their emotions and more with their brain, their thinking? Or is it that Trump is appealing more to their emotions?
Trump is appealing to their emotions. He's standing up for their children. They're seeing what's happening in education in America. They know, and I will say on a good part of Moms for Liberty, pushing the information out there that only a third of kids in America can read on grade level. I think that's starting to become public knowledge. A third. That's terrible for national security. That's terrible for the future of these children.
We're screwed.
Yeah.
Economically, it's terrible. Yeah.
Not just that, but there's these viral posts where teachers are saying like, their kids can't read, their kids can't type, the kids are completely disinterested in whatever they're doing. All they want to do is get on TikTok and just keep swiping. Like, attention span has gone to 0, and they'll see 2 seconds of something and be like, bored. And so when it comes to writing, they just use ChatGPT, submit it, and then say, and shrug. Oh.
I wonder if that takes into account the homeschooling spike.
Oh, of course.
At church recently, we celebrated all the kids who graduated high school. 30 kids, all of them homeschooled. No one went to public school. And these kids talk like better than me. They're smarter than me. And they had a great schooling. So I wonder if like we're watching the public schools totally fail, but the homeschooling is really taking off.
Especially since COVID, when the schools shut down and teachers union fought, I'm not going to open a school till you defund the police and all of their nonsense. I mean, parents had no choice but to start homeschooling or their kids were going to fall behind dramatically. Of course, you see those numbers growing.
And like you think that, I think the public school system's still working off the antiquated 20th century model, pretending like AI doesn't exist. And then the kids go home and they use AI to finish their homework. And the teachers are like,
that's frying their brains.
And then but the moms of the kids are sitting there with them like, what, did you use ChatGPT again? Like,
let me just tell you the scary thing about this is that I recently, we got the Switch 2, the Nintendo Switch 2.
Yeah.
And you can get Nintendo and GameCube and SNES. So I went online and I downloaded the app so you can play their library of Nintendo games. They don't have that many, but there's a lot. And I was playing the game Crystallis.
Love that game, dude.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love that game.
So good. Now, let me tell you why this matters. Because I used ChatGPT because I'm like stuck in the beginning. What do I do? So I typed in ChatGPT, how do I, do this thing?
Teleport?
Total example. What do I do at the Carissa plant? It fabricated this huge walkthrough for the game that included characters that didn't exist in the game, and I knew. I've played the game 800 times when I was a kid, and I was playing it again, but I can't remember what to do with this thing, and I'm like, this is completely fabricated and made up. Completely. And it's only because I knew it was like, go south of this one town. I'm like, there's no south of that town. So these kids are going to be in school, and they're going to be like, write me, an essay on Christopher Columbus discovering America, and it's going to put fake names in. Or there was that, as a total aside, that lawyer, I think this happened more than once, who had ChatGPT draft his whole legal argument, and it created fake case citation precedent.
Yep.
So a few things there. One, the Christopher Columbus thing, you just touched on it as a passing story, but worse, it could even say what's actually in the textbooks right now, which say Christopher Columbus is a war criminal and worse. And so I bet you ChatGPT is going to pull up all the anti-American rhetoric and feed it in just as the textbooks are now. And number two, it's not just the kids with this AI. So my 17-year-old, they have a policy in my school district, the kids can't use AI for papers.
Nice.
And at least my son says he doesn't use AI because he thinks the teachers put it in the AI checker and he'll get caught. Not saying he doesn't ever do it, but he says he doesn't. But he got really upset last year because his paper was graded with AI, and he came home so mad, and he said, why I can't use AI to write it? Why does she get to use AI to grade it? And I was like, well, how do you really know? He said, Mom, look at this. There's no feedback on my writing. It's literally these captioned things from AI. I can tell. And then I threw it in the AI checker, and it told me it was AI.
And then what if the AI is wrong?
Yeah, it's teaching him wrong, and the teacher has no idea if he's writing or if he's not, what he needs to help with or anything. It's so messed up.
And you know where it gets worse? When these kids use AI to write an essay and then post the essay somewhere online in some way the AI can use it, the AI writing gets re-ingested into its own training model.
It's like those pictures. They're like, reprint this picture 1,000 times. You ever see it? And then they slowly morph into this demon creature. Same thing with your paper. I was going to ask, what's the AI checker that you mentioned?
I have no idea. I can ask my 17-year-old and let you know.
Sounds like a good piece of technology for the coming days.
I think we're totally screwed.
I don't think I can trust the AI checker.
I think
and protect itself.
I was talking to this guy, pro skateboarder. You'd think he wouldn't be apprised to a lot of the stuff, but he asked me if I'd ever read about the fourth turning, and I was like, oh boy, how much time do you got? And so we talked a bit about it. And this is just a guy who skates. He's not a big political guy or anything like that. People are starting to learn. Are you familiar with the fourth turning?
I am not.
Strauss-Howe generational theory is that every 4 generations you have some kind of crisis period. And there's a bunch of ways you can break it down. I'll overly simplify it. So 80 years ago, we had the World Wars. 80 years before that, the Civil War. 80 years before that, the Revolution. There was conflict 80 years before that. It keeps going. The general idea is that after the World War, the people who fought and survived are just brutalized. And so they're carved out of stone. Mm-hmm. They're not bothered. They don't care for things like wokeness. And they're just like, sit down, shut up, and do the work. You know, having a job is not the worst thing you've ever dealt with. So they raise kids.
We're 80 years after World War II, aren't we?
That's right. God. So they raise kids off the lessons of World War II. And those kids, they start working and they have a general idea. Then they have kids. And those kids, they heard stories from their grandparents, but they don't really know. Mm-hmm. And then finally, the fourth generation is a bunch of lazy, entitled wackaloons that are soft as cookie dough, causing instability in politics, which results in some kind of chaotic moment.
Well, one of the things that has kept me sane is listening to my father talk about the horrors of Vietnam growing up. He would because he served in the Navy during Vietnam on a peacekeeping tour, in Germany. But just to watch, just to see the horror, to know, because when you get generations detached from it, it's very easy to treat it like a video game. And
that's where we are now, where kids need safe. I mean, we're talking about in the past 10 years, colleges, universities creating safe spaces for lectures, where if someone was triggered by something a professor was saying, they could go into a fluffy room with stuffed animals and pastel colors playing nursery rhymes. I'm not exaggerating.
There's this guy, Alex Honnold. You guys know this guy? He bear climbs with his bare fingers. Honnold? Alex Honnold, he's done Joe Rogan's show. He climbs mountains with his bare fingers, like hangs.
Free climbing.
Yeah. And he's like the best.
Skyscrapers?
No. He's like the best free climber on earth, not that I know of. And he said everyone should. When was the last time you've been really afraid? Like really afraid for your life? Because people should feel like that. Otherwise, they're going to start to be afraid of stupid shit.
Yep.
And that's what kind of aligns with what you're saying.
And that's where we're currently at. And it's not so much about being afraid of dumb things. It's about entitlement. That, what a lot of these young people were experiencing is the worst thing. Actually, I'll put it this way. My baby was crying today. And we're trying to console her. And she had a burp. It's literally the worst thing she has ever experienced in her life. She's 4 months.
Yep.
And so her distress is legitimate, but needs to be tempered. I mean, if you've never felt pain before, you're like, what's happening? So what happens to these millennials largely is they've had zero hardship, snowplow parents. They've never, you get a trophy no matter what, even if you don't win. Mm-hmm. No one's a bully. Everyone's got to hold hands and sing. And then you enter the real world and you walk down the street and someone screams at you, dumbass, and you go, and it's like literally the emotional pain of being insulted is the worst thing you've ever experienced.
It makes me think that we should treat these people like your 4-month-old going through a burp. Like it is that painful for them.
At the very least, we're
nice to them.
We shouldn't bend the knee to every demand they make.
And I don't mean treat them like a baby. I mean have the compassion for the human as if it really is genuine pain, even though to us or to you it might seem like ridiculous.
No.
The point is to understand. The baby was screaming like the apocalypse was happening, and then she went, and that was it. And then she smiled. And it's like, that's, so I understand for the baby who can't burp, this is not just a trivial problem, but for a 40-year-old, for a millennial working in government who is crying over burping, we've got a problem.
The bigger problem is, that's an absolute problem, and I agree with you. But what's happening in schools right now, in the youngest grades all the way through high school, is they're infusing social emotional learning. I'm not sure how familiar you are with it. You're basically having security and safety circles where you sit around and talk about your feelings at the youngest age and make sure everybody's comfortable. And you spend more time on that than learning how to read. And so we're actually developing children to be this way even as adults.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.